All right, everyone. DJ Smith out as head coach. I'm Jack Richardson. Got another edition here of the Everyday Sens podcast. I'm on my own for this one again. Brennan is at work. He's got a double shift today. Tough timing for him. Both times we've done this, it's been, the emergency press conferences earlier this year, about a month ago when Pierre Dorion was let go, and or about 2 months ago, I should say, and of course now DJ Smith being let go. This one, I feel, just right off the cuff, like this has been so premeditated. Like this was coming. This was coming for a long time. I'm gonna throw the chat up here just so people could see. I like doing that when I'm on my own for these. So again, if you're on the YouTube, it looks like we do have some Twitter comments coming in. I don't know how that works, but from my experience, easier to comment along when you're on the YouTube. So head over there to watch. But again, if you're on Twitter or whatever, we appreciate the view as well. So you see there from Ushered, the comment will, any new comments now will show up on the screen. We can read along as we go here. So immediately, right? Like this was it's not even the worst kept secret in the league because it wasn't reported that they were going to do it. It was actually the opposite, that they wanted to be more cautious and more patient than fans were ready for, right? But clearly they reached a breaking point. Everyone in the NHL seemed to just be looking at the Sens, saying that why haven't they done it yet? As soon as you get opposing fans like Leafs and Habs fans saying the Sens have too much talent to not be competing and whatever, they need a new coach, that's when so that was a pretty telling moment. When you're getting pity from other fan bases, it's time. So this is a bigger one for me in the grand scheme of like the core of the team, the development of the players. This is the first coaching change that a lot of these guys are going to go through or have gone through. Even Brady Tkachuk has had Guy Boucher and had a little bit of a change there in his rookie season, but that's not the same, in my opinion. Like this is different. This is his coach. This is a guy he backed. So we'll get into all of that, but I think this is more impactful of a move for the organization than moving on from Pierre Dorion. This tells the players that this isn't good enough. And I think what's important to remember, and you'd be short-sighted, I think, to not mention this when you talk about DJ Smith's tenure, even this season. Like he lasted 26 games. He lasted as long as he did because the players wanted him to. And we cannot forget that, right? Yeah, you can blame management all you want for waiting so long. The season's probably lost at this point. They got to go on an absolutely crazy run to make it Hamburglar style. And yeah, Perry, I know that the St. Louis was last place in January in the Cup. Of course, anything's possible. Not going to write it off until we see the new product. But I think personally, off the cuff, this just feels like more of a move to kind of set the stones in place so that they can see these guys under a new head coach. I mentioned it a couple episodes ago on this podcast, just saying, are we sure that you can't evaluate guys and you can't make big moves as new management until you see them under your own coach and stuff like that. And obviously Staios and Andlauer brought Jacques Martin in, they brought Daniel Alfredsson in, so they're comfortable even in an interim basis putting them as the head coach and assistant coach, right? A little bit weird the way it happened. I think bringing them both in periodically and then about 3 weeks later just inserting them as the interim head coach and stuff like that. We can kind of dive into how DJ was feeling, a little bit of a Bruce Boudreau situation if you think about it, just a little bit less fanfare for the coach because it's been so long, but still a strange scenario here for DJ in the last little bit. I'd imagine that, yeah, it's not great losing your job and whatever, but I'd imagine he's kind of got a sigh of relief here. He can kind of just move on. Listen, like, excuse me, it's gonna be tough because like this is not a bad, this is a good thing for the Sens. This is a good thing moving forward. They needed a change. The last week has been miserable. The play on the ice has been abysmal. It's not been good. But the thing is, like you could say all of that and say that DJ wasn't the right coach anymore, yada yada yada. But he did do a lot of good things here. He really did. He did a lot of good things for this young core a few seasons ago. I think the last little bit, it's just gotten a little bit old. They finally had a team this year that looked like it was on paper ready to compete, and they just haven't done that straight up. It's been really, abysmal, to be honest. Like it's been inconsistent and abysmal. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It looks like we are getting some comments from Twitter here, so that's great. That's great that that's possible. I didn't think it was, but we love that. All right, so look, like I'm going to be kind of scrolling on Twitter, just reading a bunch of stuff as we do this here. This was, we were planning on recording tonight and it was going to be a bit of a grievance. we we were ready to just kind of rip into everything, the play on the ice, the coaching, like it just seems so lifeless. And yeah, this is probably too late. This is probably happening way too late. December 18th, I think you could make the argument that it should have happened before Sweden. You can make the argument it should have happened after the Sweden trip when they couldn't string a win together after that. So there's never, as we've proved with, or not we, as the NHL time over time, and especially lately, has proven new coaches breed results. No matter what, you get wins more often than not. You get wins right out of the gate with a brand new coach than not. You can look at this season. You can look at Jay Woodcroft leaving Edmonton with a winning record. You can look at Jay Woodcroft entering with Edmonton with whenever he joined there, and they were top team in the league as soon as he joined, and then didn't really leave that pedestal until early this year. Then they fire him, and then they go back to being a top team in the league. Like, stuff like that happens all the time. Look at Vancouver. I'm mentioning Canadian markets especially because that's the most comparable one for the Sens, I think. You look at Vancouver last year around this time, they obviously drag out the Bruce Boudreau thing, like I mentioned, and they bring in Rick Tocchet. They don't make the playoffs, but they improve drastically during that season. And now this year, they're one of the top teams in the NHL. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen for Ottawa. I don't think it will. There's a lot more to break down. Martin's on an interim basis. Those other guys weren't, like Woodcroft and Knobloch in Edmonton were both on permanent basis. I still fully expect, I expect Jacques Martin to coach like he's going to be here for the next 2-3 seasons. Like, I don't think this is going to be a patch job from him. Based on his press conference a few weeks ago when they introduced him as the coach, or the senior advisor to the coach, you could just tell this guy has so many ideas and he's got so many smart plans, or I'm calling them smart because they're going to be new, but just he has ideas for this team and he has a vision that I think he's going to implement this season. And I'd be shocked if it goes well that they don't bring him back. So that's my take. I'm not saying that that's no inside information at all. That's kind of the way I'm seeing it. But that's obviously at first glance. Alfie's another interesting side part of this, right? Like him coming on as an assistant. It's a very public job, even if it's an assistant coach. Like he'll be it's something we've talked about, where do we want the franchise legend being behind the bench? Because in the meantime, it's probably going to be great if they can find some success, but eventually legends or coaches die. Like, look at DJ Smith. Obviously it's not a great example, but every great coach somewhere, eventually, like, they all have a shelf life. And I don't know how I feel about Alfredsson being behind the bench, because that would mean eventually he becomes the villain in Ottawa down the line. But for the meantime, I love it because I think getting him more hands-on with the players, I don't think, I mean, again, it would be speculation to say otherwise, but I don't think that since Alfie and Martin have been there, there's been any, like, I don't even know what the word is, but I don't think there's been any turmoil amongst the team, like coaching wise, where Alfie disagrees with something that DJ does or vice versa or whatever. I don't get that sense. That being said, they just weren't winning enough hockey games, and this is a winning business, and the Sens are now in that winning business. The rebuild's over. It is. And I know that's a meme now because we're still in the basement of the NHL, but this had to happen. This was worst case scenario for the Sens, right? It was in the back of everyone's mind. I think we were all saying, you know what, how bad could it be with DJ, right? You've got a good team now. If they could stay relatively healthy, what they did last year, kind of climbing themselves back in, it personally gave me faith that DJ could at least get them to the playoffs. Then we could have a conversation when he's needed a new contract next summer about what the right fit is, because we would have a better sample size to look at this team and say, this is their weakness when the games matter. This is blah, blah, blah. But they can't get out of their own way. They couldn't get out of the November funk, even though they didn't play a ton of games. And then they couldn't get out of the December funk. Like, this was a month that in years past, they've turned things around. They've been even worse in December. Like, they were good for 5 games. The last 4 games have been the worst hockey we've seen from this core, which is saying something because we watched some pretty bad hockey teams. So there's a lot to break down. I got obviously some comments here from Road to Pine. If they're going to get rid of Capuano too. I think Bruce Garriock tweeted out that they are keeping him, but giving him the option to stay, is what I am reading into that, I think is what he said. So yeah, I'm not gonna, actually, I guess I'll screen share it. This is from the Locked On podcast. Let me just figure out how to screen share, figure it out. not that hard. I'm just takes a little bit of time, and I'm trying to do it a bit faster here. So share screen. Yeah, there we go. Nice. All right. So here's from the Locked On Senators podcast. Quick little graphic from them. Um, yeah, just and I hope that's coming up clearly for everyone there. This is it's very sobering. And again, look, the numbers are awful. The numbers are awful. They're not even close to what a professional coach should have over a long span. Um, But I think the last 2 seasons is probably more accurate for what we should do because that's the time that the team was loading up, right? They didn't have a first round pick the last 2 seasons. Because they traded away to get better players. That means you're expected to win. And numbers like that, I mean, I would imagine honestly he's around the 460, 470 win percentage in the last 2 seasons overall anyway. So it's not great. I think they're right around 500 actually in the last 2 years combined. Um, I mean, we don't have to dive into the numbers that much. It just felt like something that that we should mention, right? Because it's not again, like I don't like you don't want to um it's not I don't want to say dance on a guy's grave, but you know what I mean? Like there is going to be a lot of that and that's just the nature of things, but overall DJ Smith was brought in here to develop the young guys and make them into good professionals or whatever it is. And when they were young, and it's pretty hard to argue that he didn't do that at the time. The first like 2, 3 seasons of his tenure, he did a great job. The young guys developed. The ones that we needed to developed anyway. Like Brady Tkachuk became a superstar. Tim Stützle became a superstar. Jake Sanderson's on his way. Like there's pieces that DJ Smith has his fingerprints on, like we mentioned about Pierre Dorion. But that being said, this was a depressing start to the season. Like and the names that DJ was around in terms of tenure and everything like that. Like I really do appreciate that. I think overall it's says more good than bad that the Sens were so adamant about defending him because they believed in themselves, they believed in the vision. And when you're with a coach for so long, and I know I've seen people say it's like Stockholm syndrome. It's not like that at all, right? Because they liked DJ, like they all had good relationships with him from all accounts. It was a good scenario for a lot of these guys. Um, but I think what we need to remember though, overall, it's a good thing that they were so quick to defend him, right? And I know it was so frustrating at the time, and it still is now, considering how long it took them to move on from him. But personally, I still think it says good things about the team, and it just speaks to the character they have. Again, just kind of scrolling through Twitter again here still, because it's weird. Like I'm not excited by any means. There's a lot of work to do. They're still in the basement in the NHL. Like they could go and win 3 in a row and they're still under 500. So you know what? Uh, I don't know. I mean, just everyone give me your thoughts here. Like this just seems like a move that is too late, but I think the fact that management did something despite all the reports that they weren't going to do anything, speaks to like them realizing like they're getting their hands on what is wrong or what needs to change kind of thing. And I know it feels like it took a long time, but it's only 26 games, right? They've only been GM and owner Staios and Andlauer for 26 games. Which in the grand scheme is not a lot. It really isn't. And given when they came in, like they cleaned house in 3 months, right? Like that's not a super long time in the grand scheme. It just feels like it's been so long because we've seen the same thing for 6 years. So that it was a weird dynamic, but it's over now. Like it's over, and that's kind of a bonus I think that we have to look at. Let's just roll through some comments here. I didn't really look at all of them. They were kind of rolling in hot there early on. Does this mean we got to stick with Martin and Alfie until the end of the season until they shift focus to guys like Woodcroft and Berube? I mean, maybe, but again, like I'm not sure that they are just looking at Martin as like a patchwork, if that makes sense. Like I'd imagine there's a press conference coming later today from Arizona. Maybe I'm assuming like, I mean, they got to be flying out there if they were, or they're already there. I guess like everyone's already there. So I would expect a press conference of some sorts today from management, even though it's on the road. So it's a bit of a weird scenario, but like even if we don't make a playoff spot, so it's competitive hockey. I agree. That's the goal. Like it's really sobering that we're at that point, but the last couple games, like I was apathetic. Like I didn't care. Like the wins have been kind of fun lately, and when they string it together, it looks fun. It's fun to watch. The goals are still there most of the time, which is also fun. But in the grand scheme, like as soon as they just start to lose ground, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So I want to see change, and we got change. So now we got to see who can step up. Like it's like training camp starts all over again with a brand new coach, right? You gotta uh analyze what your players are going to do, like new guys who or guys who were favored under DJ might not be so much anymore. Like everything's going to change, right? And I think that's important to remember. Like the positions guys are put in will vary depending on their first practice. And ironically, they didn't have a practice with them. They had a practice with DJ today, so tomorrow might be a bit of a rough game, but that's the NHL, man. This is why when they had no games in November, it was seen as a really good time to do it because they had time to practice and they had time to get together and do everything. And I know the Blue Jays, I'm not saying playoffs are impossible. I'm not like I'm the furthest guy to be, if they win 2 games, I'm going to think they're all the way back if they look great. So I'm not going to count them out ever, to be honest. Like they still have a lot of games in hand. Like on a lot of teams, they're still behind either way if they win all of those, but they could put themselves right in the mix with a few wins, which is crazy to say. But it's yeah, man. Like the fact that it took this, I think, after everything that happened, like it's really not a great look on some players for when the fans were booing and calling for change about a month ago for the players to come out and say it's BS, like be better or whatever. And then for this to eventually happen anyway. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack. Again, I'm trying to go through this just on my own here. We'll just go through the comments again. Like the comments are helpful. They help me sort through everything. Credit to management here's from Lenny. I'm just reading Lenny's out there. It's right on everyone's screen. Credit to management for the change. You have to remember they went through a year-long process of buying the team. The GM then tells them DJ is the right guy, fire Dorion, and then play bad. It's true. And I got to be honest. I don't want to say that when Dorion was let go, I don't think that meant the writing was on the wall for DJ. I genuinely believe Staios and Andlauer wanted to like see this year through at least because he didn't have a contract for next year. So it was kind of a free like tryout, if that makes sense, right? Where they could legit see themselves like, okay, what's this guy about? And then when you get Brady Tkachuk, I'm assuming if he's saying it in public that often and that emotionally, that behind closed doors in his meetings when Staios and Andlauer met with them, Brady's saying, I like this coach, we like this coach, the group likes him. How can you fire him then? Like at that point, how can you? Even though the fans are screaming for change, if the captain of the team, one of the superstar players, the most marketable guy on your team, if he's saying we like this guy here and we want to keep him, you can't come in and just fire everyone. And I know that you technically can, but in order, like you got to preserve relationships you just made. And it's a tough balance. So, but that being said, I would imagine the players on the Sens cannot be surprised by this. Like it's ridiculous at this point. You got a lot of young guys in there, but you have so many veterans now. And veterans with a lot of pedigree. You've got Claude Giroux, who's been through numerous coaching changes. Vladimir Tarasenko was on that Blues team, so there's a nugget we can follow if the team starts to do well. Tarasenko does it again, kind of thing. They've got Chikrin, who's been through a few coaching changes. Shabbat himself has been through a couple. Travis Hamonic, obviously, as a veteran. Like, there's guys who have seen it before, so they had to know. Like, the message in that room now can't be like, we're surprised or whatever. I'm really curious to see what the players say. I am. I'd imagine it's going to be hard. It is. Like, this is a guy that they had his back. They had his back. And quite frankly, if they had his back and they went on and was still up in the air, like they looked like a 500 team and it was kind of just inconsistent play, I think in a way you could kind of live with that. You could be like, okay, you know what? You guys are the ones getting coached. We're not. And despite what the fans think about the coaching staff, it matters what the players think. And if they went out and strung some wins together, like they did after they called the fans out, they won 4 or 5, including the Sweden trip. And as soon as they came back from Sweden, it was back to the old stuff. So it was the inability to string consistent hockey together, I think, spelled the end of DJ's career here, or tenure here. And ultimately that's the players have to wear that, because when you go out and so emotionally as the captain of the team back the coach, the Sens, like the onus becomes on the players. And a lot of this has to be on them too. I don't buy that DJ Smith is a bad coach. I really don't. I think there are examples of what he does that can be good. I think he was in such a unique spot with this team that when they were young, he was taught to coach them in different ways versus now, and he just wasn't able to adjust. And I think that's a fair thing. Like, how many coaches are with a team for that long anyway that don't see success? Not many. And look at Berube. Like, he coached a Stanley Cup contender or brought them to the finals. They were a pretty solid playoff team for a few seasons. They fall off a year and a half for a year and a half, and he's gone. And the fans didn't like it. But when you reach your potential with a group, it doesn't mean that you're a bad coach. It just means that you've gotten what you can get from that specific group. Like, DJ could go to another team and be totally fine as far as I'm concerned. Like, I really do think that, but that's for a rainy day. We'll say that. I'm sure we'll see him again in the league at some point. Everyone respects the hell out of him. And even in Ottawa, like, you never heard a bad thing about DJ the person, which needs to be said, because there's a lot of monster coaches that have circled through the NHL that have been bad influences, whatever it is, just bad people, but they get results. DJ seemed to be the opposite, just no results, but by all accounts, like a very, very respected person, which cannot be understated. I think that's really, really important, especially in those days where it was Melnick and Dorion, and it was a bit of a crap show at the Canadian Tire Center. I think it needs to be said how important it was to have a guy like DJ Smith there. Just to like, as much credit as Brady Tkachuk deserves and gets for DJ Smith, or sorry, for the way the coaching staff, like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like Brady Tkachuk gets a lot of credit for the culture. The culture is what I'm trying to say. But as much as that's true, DJ deserves, I think, just as much. Like, he came into a team that was young, had zero expectations, and results weren't there. And like, we are in a point now with the Sens that results matter, and it's the only thing that matters. But at the time, it didn't matter. And he came in, instilled a good culture, made Brady Tkachuk into a leader. Like, all that stuff is true. Like, two things can be true here. So what other dominoes fall now? Think betray. I don't think so. I really don't. Like, that's like I said, like, with if you're new management, you got to see them under a new coach. You have to, right? You can't make a move. Like, you can't trade I've seen people mention like Shabbat or Batherson or whoever, just as guys they would move if the time came. I kind of disagree with that until you see them under a sample size with another coach, because Drake Batherson has never played for another head coach for an extended period of time. Like, I think he played a couple games maybe as a rookie with Guy Boucher, but Josh Norris definitely hasn't had another NHL coach. Like Eric Brandstrom, Sanderson, Stutzla, like, a lot of players have not had another NHL head coach, and they could be the answer. Like some of these guys are going to change their game and look a lot better. And some might fall off a little bit. Like, it's going to be completely different. But this had to happen. I think that's the main tone, I think, from Sens fans here, is that this had to happen. It was time. So yeah, I'm just scrolling here. Like, a lot of talk about this too late. Pierre LeBrun called it a mercy fire. So the Sens also fired Davis Payne, assistant coach Davis Payne. So I would imagine that means he was the forward and special teams coach. I would imagine that Alfie is taking over that aspect in the meantime. So, all right, I'm just reading some comments here. Sam Rourke Chartier, I think he'll be fine. He was all right. Overall grand scheme, I don't know, but he won't be going anywhere too quickly. I'm reading Sens Vader's comment here. I'm just reading it in my head. DJ Smith, not a good coach. You may feel that way, but have nothing to back it up. When you're measuring coach on good vibes, you're moving off your same criteria for elevating any other coach in the league. DJ was never ready for this role. It took way too long to fire him. I mean, look, like, never ready for this role in what way? Like, what do you mean? Because his role when he was brought in was to develop the young guys. And outside of like Shabbat, I really can't, because they're so young, like, we don't know what they would have been under another guy. So maybe that's fair. But to me, I don't think it's fair to say that he wasn't the right guy at that time. But you're right. It took too long to get rid of him. It did. You're not wrong there. Like, and ultimately that's going to fall on Pierre Dorion again, because he brought him back. He brought him back twice. Like, he said to Andlauer in the summer, right? It was, what do you want to do with DJ? And Andlauer said, that's your call. You're the GM. So he brought him back. And a couple of years ago when he extended him, he brought him back. So that alone is why it falls on Pierre. But I don't agree with that. The fact that DJ wasn't a good coach, like originally, like I don't think that's fair. Cause he was brought in to coach a dumpster fire of a team, to develop the young guys. That was his goal. And that was why he was hired at the time. So that's kind of where I'm standing again, though. But like, it's, the results here were awful. And especially lately, like they were not good, but I'm not ready to label a guy a bad coach because of mitigating circumstances, if that makes sense. Like, it's rare for a head coach to start bottom of the barrel rebuild and bring the team all the way back up to a playoff team and whatever. So I still think he did his job. He just was here too long. That's my point. But I get that, like, doing it off field doesn't really make any sense, and that's fair. Yeah. Ready for the next level. You're right. He was not the guy to take them to the next level. That's abundantly obvious. The good culture in the losing environment at the time was necessary, but right now it just kind of seems like a wash of a statement, because I agree with that. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it, man. Any I'm worried about? I mean, I'm worried about everyone, to be honest. No one looks good lately. So, but again, like in the grand scheme, so let's go back. Let's go back to before the Hurricanes game, right? They were on a heater. They were on a heater. They're coming off that Red Wings win. Like everything was going right. Like they were back. They were feeling good. They crushed the Red Wings in a high emotion game. And then before that Tuesday, like it's been a week. It's been a really bad week, but it's just been a smaller sample of what we've seen for 6 years or for 4 years under DJ, right? Like just inconsistent defensive play, bad goaltending, which is a huge problem as well overall. But like, look at any team, man. As soon as the coaching change happens, the goaltending just gets better all of a sudden. So I'm really curious. Like I again, like now I'm excited for tomorrow's game. Like that's a big game. We there's just a lot to break down. There really is. Like I want to attack the Jacques Martin angle. The Sens have, according to ineffective math on Twitter, the Sens have an 11% chance of making the playoffs. And someone said that's Daniel Alfredsson's music, and it's true. It's true. I mean, that's kind of a sign. I'm already back. I'm right back. Yeah, one of the longest. This is Down Goes Brown, and he writes for the Leafs, freelance writer for the Leafs. He says, finally, mercifully, one of the longest hot seat watches in NHL history comes to an end. Sometimes stability is a crutch. The Senators had been leaning on it for way too long. Now the question is whether it's already cost them yet another season. I mean, odds are yes, it has. It has. Yeah. So, man, I don't know. This is really interesting. It's interesting. In the grand scheme, it didn't take long for them to clean house, but again, it bled into the season. And I think in the back of our minds, we all knew that because the ownership thing dragged out, this was going to happen. I appreciate that they took their time, but this was probably going to be the case either way. So listen, like this is the, we talk about pressure with the players and all of that. Like this is a new level of pressure. It's a new way to learn how to be a professional hockey player, if that makes sense. Like change is going to happen. This is the most change this group has ever gone through, and it's a coaching change, right? So I'm really curious to see how Brady responds, how Tim responds. Like imagine Tim Stützle just becomes even better than he was. And I know he's been really, off and on this season, but the numbers are still there. 5-on-5, he's been great offensively anyway. So I'm super curious to just see like the commitment to defense that they've got. It's Jacques Martin, man. Like this guy notoriously coached defensive minded teams, and I have no reason to believe that will change with this group right now. So the talent is there. I'm almost at a loss for words because it's been so dragged out that you've almost had time to just accept like, yeah, they're going to change their coach. I just don't know when. So now that it's happening, I think when Martin got hired, the writing was on the wall for DJ, which is again, like a little bit strange, but yeah, this is the most of this live is just going to be me scrolling through Twitter. Just FYI, I'm going to try and keep this entertaining, but I don't I don't really have a ton more to say, to be honest. Let's be honest here. Like, this is kind of this is what we needed. The Sens needed this. So let's go. Yeah, I'll keep going through the comments here. Coyotes tomorrow, Avalanche Thursday, Penguins at home on Saturday. Then it's Christmas. What do I expect? What should we expect? Like, obviously the obvious answer is wins. Like that at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But um I just I want to see some low scoring games, man. I want to see defense. I want to see defense, which is crazy because we came from Guy Boucher to DJ Smith and it was the complete opposite, right? DJ or Guy was a defensive minded coach. So, yeah. Uh yeah, I'm just there's a lot to read through here. This is interesting. So here's what the question is going to be, right? It's going to be how long does it take for Martin's systems to get implemented, right? He's already been here. So this isn't like a fresh face coming in. You've got less than 24 hours before you play a hockey game. Like, Martin's been here. So we have to assume he's been working with guys. He's been working with the staff already to implement his stuff because he was a senior advisor of the coaching staff. So you got to assume, and with Alfie here for even longer, like since the Sweden trip, you got to assume that they have some level of understanding of what those guys are going to look for. So I'm not necessarily worried about how quick it'll get implemented. I'm just curious, like how much of a change we're going to see. It's fascinating. So tomorrow's obviously going to be a must watch for Sens fans, no matter what. But um, yeah, the goaltending versus chances given up is fascinating. Like the goaltending hasn't been good, but the defense has also not been good. Um, yeah, folks. Like honestly, we know he should have been gone a while ago. He should have been, but this is it's a big day for Sens fans. It really is because they called for change. And you know what? This is where Sens fans I think need like to be, I don't want to say credited, but you know, for years, right? For years, this fan base was ridiculed. You got to move the team. They don't care about it in Ottawa. Not a passionate fan base, whatever it is. Um, this happened because of Sens fans, and that is nowhere close to being a bad thing. We have been through so many ups and downs, mostly downs in the last half decade, last 6, 7 years. It's been brutal to be a Sens fan. And I say drank the Kool-Aid, but we drank the Kool-Aid for years, just being like, hey, we're buying into the process. It's going to be there. We believe in these young guys. This season, whether it was fair or not, expectations were put on this team from the fan base. And when that happens, results are expected. When they don't happen and we see the same movie we've seen over and over again, fans are going to call for change, and they're going to call for change in any sport, any team, any market. It's going to happen one way or another. It just took way longer in Ottawa than it would have in other places. In Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver, DJ would have been gone in 2021 in that Canadian division. He would have had his one season, and then they would have had that 1-9 or 1 in whatever start that they had to the Canadian division year, and he would have been gone. That's what would have happened. I think 3 coaches in that division were fired that season, and DJ wasn't one of them, and the Sens came last or close to last. That was a time he could have been fired. The following season in November, when they got riddled with COVID, they couldn't put together a lineup. They still only won like 3 games or something like that in a span of 20 games. They were brutal. I'm pulling stats out of, out of thin air here, but this is the reality of what the starts were like for Ottawa under DJ in 4 seasons, which is crazy. The following year, like I'm saying all these when he could have been fired and when it would have been justified in any other market. But Ottawa was a unique case because they had a vision from one entity, and then this season it bled into this season. You go to the following year, last year, they played good. They played really well. They played good hockey in November. They just couldn't score. They couldn't get the win. They couldn't figure out a way to get them to overtime or whatever. They couldn't score with the goalie pulled. Bounces legit weren't going their way the last year. That was an acceptable response. But again, that was a time it would have been okay to justify firing DJ Smith. It absolutely would have. Coaches have been fired for much, much less in the NHL. Then you go to this year. It happened too late again. So all this stuff, and the fact that I know that there's always been people saying DJ's got to go, he's not the right guy. the fact that it was so unanimous for this fan base and it took this long to be this unanimous is a testament to how loyal this fan base is. We were willing to buy in. Most people were willing to buy in for the longest time with a coach with no track record. So the Sens fans deserved better, and we deserve better, and we're getting better now. We are getting answers for what we're calling for, and I think that that is something that Sens fans need to be applauded for, because, like I said, they're ridiculed for being a small market fan base. They're constantly just made fun of for being small market. Oh, you guys don't care. You should move the team. No one shows up to the games. It's a terrible building. Whatever it is, it's a small market. No one cares. This stretch of games proved that we care. And I think that is going to go a long way. People talk about how passionate Ottawa, like Brady likes to mention, I know they're passionate and I love it, but that's what this comes with. When expectations are there and you don't meet them, change has to happen no matter what. Jacques Martin is the best coach in Sens history. If he has this season and then they bring him back next year and they're still not a playoff team, he should be gone too. It's that simple. Like, it's not a, pro sports is not it's not a hand me out business. It's a handout system, or like whatever it is, not a hold my hand system. If you struggle and don't get results, the business struggles and won't get money. Therefore, they need to change things. So the fact that it took this long, to me, is a testament to the fans. That's all it is. This isn't the fans giving, like, the fact that the fans gave up on the team, and I put that in quotations, like they gave up now. It took this long. The players should probably consider themselves lucky, because expectations have never been higher, yet the bar was still on the floor and they didn't meet it. So that's why the coaching change happened. That has been about 40 minutes here. Like, I really, there's so much to say. I do wish I could get Brennan on here. We'll probably try and talk tomorrow at some point, but I mean, yeah, this is a not a once in a lifetime moment or whatever, but it's big news. It's big news. So I'm gonna end it there. I believe. I think we're gonna call it. Obviously, we'll be on Twitter all day. And Brennan will try and get some Instagram posts in and stuff like that. But in the meantime, if you're on the YouTube, if you could please subscribe to our page, like this video as well. And if you're watching afterwards and it wasn't live, then yes, DJ Smith has been fired as Ottawa Senators head coach. Jacques Martin taking over as interim head coach, with Daniel Alfredsson replacing Davis Payne on the bench as assistant coach interim. Jack Capuano, the defense coach, his future is in question. Like, he was offered to come back, but not, no word on that yet, I guess. I would imagine he sticks around for a little bit, but that's kind of all we've got to say here. It's been, that's a good show just to break down everything. We'll have a lot more to talk about, obviously. So appreciate everyone for joining us. We thank you. And as always, go Sens go. This was a long time coming. And we'll just see what they can do tomorrow night against the Arizona Coyotes. So thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you next time. It's been the Everyday Sens podcast.